If you've ever tried tracking your macros and using a food scale and you'd wondered whether you're actually tracking your food correctly, like should you weigh it cooked or raw? Do you track the bowl first? How do people track things like peanut butter or cooking oil? I'm gonna show you exactly how to use a food scale so tracking your macros is actually simple and accurate. Because once you know a few tricks, this honestly takes less than 10 seconds. The reason a food scale is so helpful is because eyeballing your food is actually really inaccurate. And even things like measuring cups can vary a lot depending on how packed the food is and how it's scooped. A food scale just removes all that guesswork. You're weighing the exact amount of food, which makes your tracking more accurate. It's also really helpful when you're first learning portions because you start to actually understand how much food certain macros or calories really are. And it helps you learn what portion sizes actually work for you, your body, and your goals. And once you get used to it, it honestly takes about 5 seconds. If you're trying to lose fat, build muscle, or just understand your nutrition better, this makes a huge difference. Before we start weighing food, let me show you the basics of how a food scale actually works. Most food scales are really simple. You'll have a power button to turn it on, a button to switch units like grams or ounces, and a tare button. The tare button is the one you'll use the most. All it does is reset the scale back to 0 so you can add food without counting the bowl or plate. That way, you're only weighing the food itself, not the container. This next trick is one that makes tracking really fast once you get used to it. Let's say you want to track peanut butter. Instead of putting it on another dish, you can actually just put the jar on the scale, zero it out, scoop peanut butter out, and the scale will actually show a negative number. That number is exactly how many grams you took out. So if it says negative 16 grams, you log 16 grams in your food tracker. And you can do the same thing with things like egg whites. Zero the carton, pour what you need, and now the scale tells you exactly how much you poured. Same thing with cooking oil and dressings. Put the bowl on the scale, tare it, and pour. This keeps you from dirtying extra dishes, is more accurate, and makes tracking way quicker. Now let's go through the basics of how you'll weigh most food. Start by putting your bowl or plate on the scale and pressing tare. Then add the food you want to weigh. Once you have the weight, you just log that amount in your tracking app. You can weigh pretty much anything this way: protein, carbs, fruit, vegetables, and I recommend using grams whenever possible because it is the most accurate measurement. Now, one of the biggest questions that people have when they start tracking their macros and using a food scale is should they weigh things cooked or raw? The reason this gets confusing is because cooking actually changes the weight of some foods. For example, raw chicken might weigh about 200 grams, but after it cooks, it might only weigh around 150 grams because water cooks out. The important thing to understand is that the calories and macros don't change, just the weight. Now, there are 2 ways that you can track this. The easiest way for most people is to track foods cooked. So you would search things like cooked chicken breast, white rice cooked, ground beef cooked. And make sure if you're weighing things like ground beef or ground turkey that you specify the percent leanness, like 93% or 90%, because the calories and the macros will vary greatly depending on the percent leanness that you get. You can also track foods raw if you'd prefer, but then you'd also need to weigh them before cooking. For most beginners, I just recommend tracking the cooked weight. It's simpler and easier to stay consistent. Now, some foods change weight more than others when they cook. Foods like rice, pasta absorb water, so they weigh more after cooking. Meat usually does the opposite. It loses water and weighs less. General rule of thumb, about 25% less, but cooking methods and foods vary. But again, only the weight changes. The calories and the macros stay the same. Here are a few really common mistakes that people make when they first start tracking their macros and using a food scale. The first one is not weighing calorie-dense food, like peanut butter, granola, oils, avocado. These are really easy to underestimate, and it could easily add hundreds of extra calories that you don't realize. Another is relying on measuring cups instead of grams or ounces with a food scale. Measuring cups can vary a lot depending on how the food is packed or scooped into it. And a big one that people forget is cooking oil. Just 1 tablespoon of olive oil is about 120 calories. And another common mistake is logging food raw but weighing it cooked, which really throws the numbers off. Now, something important to remember is tracking is simply a tool. It can help you understand portions, hit your protein targets, stay consistent with your nutrition, and learn what it looks like to fuel your body to reach your goals. But it's not something that you necessarily have to do for forever. A lot of people use tracking just for a period of time to learn what proper portions for them looks like and to build better habits. So I would encourage, as you are using your food scale, pay attention to what those serving sizes look like so you can get more confident with eyeballing. Because eventually, you'll probably want to transition into just eyeballing and intuitive eating, but you want to take the knowledge that you learned from tracking with you. Once you understand these basics, using a food scale honestly becomes really quick and simple. Now, if this was helpful, check out this next video where I teach you how to actually log your food in MyFitnessPal so tracking your macros becomes even simple and easier. And if you want a full breakdown to help you understand and figure out your own macros, I'll link my macro tracking guide down below.